I'd like to thank Ghanniy again for the amazing monologue performance from his play. Also expanding what it means to do a presentation for this symposium. We now have about 20 minutes for Q&A and discussion. Dr. Ebede anticipated that maybe the discussion will be a little heated, I don't know. These are important issues, but we hope we can be respectful of each other. We are together, as they say in Tanzania. We ask, however, that if you have a question, try to keep it concise so that everyone has an opportunity to discuss. And if we can't cover everything within these 20 minutes, this is followed by lunch, so we hope that this discussion will be continued face-to-face over some delicious food. So. And if you want, there's the microphone on the table, so you can push the button. Push the button.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I think I love the event and here. And my name is Grace. I'm from Tanzania. And I'm working in Taiwan now. The presentation was very good, but I have only one question. I'm sorry I don't remember the name, but presenter in the middle.
Nkenyereye.
Yeah, Louis, thank you. I love your strategy and you catch my attention when you're presenting, especially when you mentioned about the salary amount for public servants. I was the one. I worked in my country almost for 15 years as a teacher. So what you have mentioned there, I totally understand. And my question is that your strategies and your idea are very good. And back to our countries, not like people, they don't know what is happening because they're paying and their life is very different from their work done. And what they get from what they are working is totally different. And some people will try, maybe, like after going abroad, as you are, they will have different ideas in trying at least to see how they can make some changes. But very unfortunately, because the change or the system of the life back there, some people are very beneficial to that. And they want the system to be like that. So once they're spotted, they have different ideas. They will declare disappeared, or they will be killed, or something bad will happen to them. All the ideas will be shut down. So have you prepared yourself to overcome the consequences of the big ideas you have? That's my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. In the video, he said, he showed that there's no rich, I don't know, probably I'm not sure about, but there's no developed country who will be willing to see a poor country to develop. There might be very few, but from the video, many presidents have said it. So, first of all, that's why we saw in Warisa, our first programs are towards undergraduate students, because we want them to be very, very successful. For me to run Warisa, all the funding, everything from is because I was a little bit successful. Yes, so we attend around 10 events every year, and most of them I do it for myself. So the first strategy is not only, there's a last picture, the think tank had the first event last year, and we invited undergraduate students. So my first strategy is that the undergraduate students, they know about our battle, number one. Number two, for myself, of course, the first people they told us that they are not interested in Warisa. We have not received any funds, especially except the Taiwanese team, Taiwanese chapter, but other chapters, Germany, Canada, Australia, where we have had events. It's one time, I will not mention the country, what a person said, we cannot give little funding to Warisa because we're preparing people who will replace us in the future. Now, the preparation is, I'm not sure, but if probably someone tried to threaten my life. I don't care. At least this is my my belief. That's what I want to document it. But I think, as I said, whenever you criticize a president or a person, we always use wisdom. We are a non-political organization. We do our best to use wisdom so that we don't look like a threat to some people. But however, everyone here who is from Africa or from a country of African heritage, and you want your country to be like Taiwan or South Korea, just know that not many countries are willing to see your country improve. It's up to us to be wise and to fight. So, how do I prepare myself to end with your question? Well, as you said, the first opposition is from our brothers. And that's why it's very simple. Because if you are paid, in my country, I was checking, a salary is 30 kg of rice, your whole salary. If you are paid 30 kg of rice for 1 month, and a white person come and give you 1,000 USD to kill Lewis, are you going to hesitate? No, many of them will not hesitate. They will just take me out. But that's why if we can improve the wages, I think the answer to the question of the president, though I have not mentioned it, I thought is president, you have many enemies around you. Why? Because your lifestyle is much, much better compared to that of the people around you. Try to improve the salary or how people around you, how they, their benefits, and you'll be more protected. So the coups, while the coups are very hard, I think, let me say this at the end of this question, it's very hard. Why do developed countries, let's say Taiwan and Korea, why they don't have people in opposition outside their countries? Because they have tried to work together. Even if they don't agree, they try to, to stay in one country. But Africa and African countries and those of African heritage, all the people in the opposition, they are outside the country. I'm not coming into politics, but my answer is, I don't know. Yeah, thank you very much. There's another question.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I think I will ask Ebede Ndi. Yeah, you are on top of the presentation. However, there are a few things I would like you to address. Africanism, or Pan-Africanism rather, is started as a political project to overcome colonialism, slavery, and the likes, even neo-colonialism. However, it remains an unfinished project because it has dovetailed into what we call, probably what we refer to as fragmentation. Fragmentation really says that we now talk about urbanization of identity, colonial borders, which still a challenge, border issue, border governance, issue of migration, and the likes. So in all this, we equally even talk about the present day neo-colonialism, which appears in form of economic dependency among the Africans and the West. The question now is, how do we move from theory to practice, or practice? What is the way out? Since it's an unfinished project from political dimension, where our foremost leaders started it, what is the place of the people? People now, people-centric. What is the place of digital, probably soft power, digitalities, in making or in creating a consciousness within the Africa, what we call African consciousness now, or people, the consciousness in people to see Africanism from a personal view. Because even the beauty you mentioned no longer works. Look at what is happening in South Africa, where even though the citizens of the nations that helped to fight apartheid, united as a unity to get you out of apartheid and the likes, are being internally fought against and dismissed. So the point is, how do we move this political project that is still unfinished from fragmentation to practice where people are involved and where people should participate? Cheers.
So thank you for your question. The reason why it's politically focused has to do with the history. It started like in the Caribbean, like I said in my presentation, with Haiti being the first black country to obtain its independence on January 1st, 1804. That inspired all black people all over the world. So it was a political foundation for Pan-Africanism. And when that moved to the United States with Webb Du Bois, whose father was from Haiti, but Du Bois himself was born in Massachusetts, he's the one who conceptualized it academically, the Pan-African movement, with the first conference in London, 1800, and the first Congress in Paris, 1819. So the foundation of Pan-Africanism is political. So when it went with those stuff, we see that I moved from Caribbean to the US and then I went down to Europe with the conferences. Then it came down to Africa, which was the last continent to even know about Pan-Africanism. And up to today, many Africans don't even know what is Pan-Africanism. They have no idea, no clue. We have to learn a lot from our brother from the Caribbean. So, but when it came down to Africa, we have Kwame Nkrumah, the founding father of Ghana, who was also the father of the project of the United States of Africa. And Nkrumah said, let thee first have the political kingdom, everything else will come. Because they believed in their times that politics was the most important thing that we should care about, because we needed that political freedom. Now, my work, what I've been trying to do, and I've been in the United States, I have been engaging the African American intellectual community, Pan-African, black psychologists. I wrote an article where I was making the argument you're making. The title is From Ism to Praxis. We understand the historical background. Ism, ideology, everything Africanism, ism. I say we practice that. How do we use Pan-Africanism to help our people on a practical level? We've done political stuff. We talk about economic as well. It's not working, as you can see. So how do we move? What I'm suggesting is, even what is happening in South Africa now, we need to reconnect to our ancient ways, our ancestral ways. Because we are caught between illusion, the values of selfishness, incompetence, only thinking the me, with our leaders, within that Warisa is training the future of African students to go replace them because they want to handle power. Move from there to what our ancestors were doing, where we were living in community. We were living in relationality. So that can happen only if we really reconnect with our languages, with our culture, our practices, then we can lean on that. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Because if we only keep in the illusion sphere, we won't. Let me give you another example to just close this because I'm aware of the time. When we go to school in Africa, which language did you use in school? English. Almost every country in Africa learning what language? English, French, Portuguese, Spanish. When you go to school in Taiwan, what language do Taiwanese use in school to learn? Chinese. Okay? So, let's say, even if the foreign material that Taiwanese students learn in school is from the West, at least they learn that foreign material using their identity, their culture. So they try to understand that foreign material within their own identity and culture. But when the president of Kenya said, creating almost a diplomatic incident, that Kenya has good education, Western education. Kenya's English is good, one of the best in the world, unlike Nigerian. When Nigerians speak, you need a translator. and Nigeria got peace. So you have a leader, president of a big major African country who is happy that his country speaks the language of the former colonial master, beautiful, even better than the colonials, and the education from the foreign colonial, much better. Why do you think that we will not still talk about politics? President will not want to leave power. They want to have all that because they are not valuing their own core identity, and that's the problem.
Okay, sorry for the word of introduction. I'm also in Nigeria. They move up to the
So, how did you feel about that? The Kenyan president? Okay, it's a joke.
Well, on a, to be discussed on a different level. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. I wish you had progressing this hour. I have a question, follow-up questions. So, have you ever delivered the same talk in your own language for people in Africa? And what's the reaction?
Thank you. So that's a big question. I was born and raised in Cameroon. My father from the south, speaking the Ghanniy language. My mother from the north, speaking the northern language. My father and my mother could not understand each other if they were to speak in their languages. Okay? They had to speak in French, because I'm from the French-speaking Cameroon side. That was already a problem. And I'm born in that family where the father speaks a different language, the mother speaks a different language. The only way they can communicate is using French. You can see that it's already not easy for me as a kid, because I come into that speaking French. So my mom had to learn my father's language. I had to learn my father's language, but not that well. So, which put me in a place where I am not very conversant in my native language, because I am mentally colonized, linguistically colonized. I speak better English and French, even Spanish and German, than I speak my mother tongue. It's therefore impossible for me to give a very good conference in my mother tongue. Even though I understand very well, I cannot. I have to be honest with you. What I'm doing is to go back and learn my mother tongue. And that's the work I'm doing now. And that's what I'm asking Africans to do. Go back and learn the things we lost, beginning with our language. Culture is language, language is identity. Once you lose your language, you lose your identity, you lose your culture. The work we need to do, reconnect. Go back and reconnect.
There's someone in the very back who's been waiting for a little bit.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your excellent presentation. And first of all, I'd like to address the professor who has published a book. Can we buy your book now, right here? Because that's also the engagement we have to start learning as Africans. You should bring your books here, so every volunteer to buy it.
It was released yesterday.
Okay. So do your best so that we all can be engaged. Because you put your mouth where your money is, right? If, like, how many are we here? If we all, like, for example, we have the books here, we could all buy it. You will see from your research how engaged Africans are. Exactly, okay? So that's my first question. Your work is good. And you just asked about the language. Do we, as African things, language is our salvation in terms of Pan-Africanism, in terms of like make Africa great, make African nations like understand each other better? Personally, I think so. Okay, because in Africa, each country, how many languages do we have? Thousands of languages. Even our countries politically not able to unify our countries with one language yet. So I think we shouldn't be putting too much effort on the language, because we have a vessel now, which is English, at least. I mean, we are sitting here, everybody can speak English, right? Let's use that vessel to at least engage ourselves, understanding ourselves, and then later we can go back to create a language that could be something, okay? So I don't think we should put more effort on that one, personally. And economically, I would like to address the gentleman in the middle. Okay, but before him, I would like to thank the brother from the Caribbean, which really like his presentation showed how Caribbean, we Africans do not see much Caribbean fighting for Pan-Africanism. But as it was mentioned just before, Pan-Africanism is born in Caribbean, you know. So we do not make that connection very well, but that's not the problem. But now we are engaged for that. And I hope all of us, as we are here, we can put it dear to our heart and want something true. But for the professor, sorry.
Louis.
Okay. I do appreciate your perspective on this matter, which is education. Okay, because often we heard that education is like the mother of everything for success or whatsoever. That's true. Okay, but wrong education also could lead to some matters. Because what we have been seeing recently is this all what's going on in the world now. We realize that we have been educated, but the way other people wanted us to be educated, okay, that's our already done. We are seeing how we can learn from it, okay. But one thing I would like to ask if you guys are doing deep work on in the Pan-Africanism, why do Pan-Africanists always or most of the time do not praise our models, African models? Because in Africa, don't forget, we still have countries in Africa that successfully doing the thing great, bringing the people up, right? With good economic policies, good planning, not political part of it, because that is always difficult to combine political and economical together in order to achieve something in Africa. Because as you said, most of our opposition leaders are outside and they are manipulating most of that. I'm not saying that they are not doing the job or whatsoever. They might have the perspective, but that's what's happening in Africa. But I don't see Pan-Africanism praising those leaders or those African countries that are doing better. We should also start from there, praising ourselves.
Can you summarize your question?
Yes, sure. So please, I would like, that's my advice for you guys. If it's possible to do more when you are doing your work in terms of Pan-Africanism, to start presenting Africa otherwise, meaning those who are successful doing the work, let's present them in these developed countries so that they can see at least we are doing something. And whether it's possible for the model that those are putting in place to be expanded, scale, yes, learn from it. Put more in your researches or whatever. That's it. Thank you so much.
Yes, from the Caribbean perspective, I'd like to say that sometimes we get mixed up because I like the spiritual part of Pan-Africanism, but even from an economic standpoint, I think there's a lot to look forward to because a lot of progress has been made. So, like I said, back in the Caribbean in the 60s, 70s, it was the decolonization period. Right now, as we're in Asia, we pay attention to the Asian tigers. We see Taiwan, we see South Korea. These countries are rising. The global landscape is changing. And in many areas, Africa is well placed because a lot of these developed countries like Taiwan, South Korea, for instance, they have very low birth rates and they grapple with that. Africa has a very vibrant young population. Africa continues to have the resources. So if you're looking from a political standpoint, Africa should be next in line to achieve this economic takeoff. So we have improved in a very good position. So we will just have to, Pan-Africanism like is right now the vehicle to say, let's not lose track. You know, we have made so much progress over the past few years and victory is between our race if we just unite and to make sure, because sometimes, you know, as individuals, it's very easy for us to go to America to migrate and join that new society, to big up ourselves, to promote ourselves and our families. It's very hard to stay true to some cause of Pan-Africanism. And what we see from the other countries who have risen is that they have that identity and their people. And it happens in our leaders too. One leader will be corrupt to make a lot of money for himself and his family, even though his country is in dilapidated conditions. Like that kind of shame And so that kind of responsibility we have as a people, because even you see the world is rising, you see Asian people, you see Africa should be next in line, and our culture should be part of the whole, we feel humanity we have a role to play and our voice should be heard, and it's a piece of the whole globe which needs to, fit a piece of the puzzle. So we feel that, African culture, African people, African history is our responsibility to ensure that we have a voice in the future going forward. So I think if you study the history, you've made a lot of progress, and I thank Professor for highlighting that we need to, be more Afrocentric. But even from an economic standpoint, a lot of things are lining up. If you just look, just last week, Prime Minister Macron, he couldn't go to West Africa because the West African countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, they have kicked him up. They're looking for their own resources. He had to go all the way to Kenya. He couldn't go to Francophone countries to speak. He had to go to Kenya, and the French president had to be speaking English. And he's saying that I am the true Pan-Africanist. But like he just said, look at the history of Haiti. We in the Caribbean, we know about Haiti, right? Haiti fought for their independence, and after what the French do, they had to be paid in France for hundreds of years after independence. And for him to say something like that is so disrespectful, a slap in the face to Pan-Africanism. But we are very close, we like what is happening with the momentum. We have to make sure that our people do not lose focus. Thank you.
I've been informed that the lunch is still on its way, about 20 minutes, so we still have some more time to speak. And apologies to our Kenyan friends. I think
Just one question.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Loretta. I'm from Ghana, and I think the presentations are good. Listening to every presentation, I think the major underlying issue here is how Africans we can reclaim our identity of who we are. And a major aspect that almost everyone talked about was about education. And we actually have our education and everything in place. So my question is, how can African education system better teach African history, philosophy, and achievements? Like what practical steps can we actually put in place? Because we already have the education system and so many things going on. But how can we teach it in a way that we can actually reclaim our identity of not what other people have put out there for us to believe?
All right, thank you for that question. Now that also relates to the last question from the brother that was talking about language. Oh, sorry, it's not on. My voice is loud anyway. All right, so thank you for that question. And it's also connects with the last question from the brother that was talking about language. And I will go to language with that. As a teacher, I'm an educator in Taiwan for many years, I've just what they do. In Taiwan, I can say that many countries have got the examples. They've tried this out, and we now have a template that we can pick why is Taiwan successful. We can say, oh, this is what you've done. Why is this country very well? So let's give that language case. Taiwan has a system with the language too. Many of us are educated in English. But the elementary school, the priority is the Chinese language. First, the Wuxi band that was supposed to work hard, they are not allowed to have English teacher there until a particular age. Because they understand, there's a research box which has this idea that the kids should learn the native language of the family. You understand? We're talking about something that I read about in Nigeria. Because there are people in the country not speaking their own language. Because the parents want to feel westernized, you understand? And this, even the language of the streets, the African language, you understand? And this affects the children. You understand? We pass our culture on with language. So your question is, we can start with language, that's the answer I want to give you. Let's start with language, let's teach our children the language. But I'm not talking about just me living in Taiwan, for example. My kids don't speak my language either. But my kids are not living in Africa, so that's constant. I speak English, my wife speaks Chinese, you understand? And so my kids are Chinese. So when we're talking about Chinese, but I want to actually focus on that language. Learn Chinese, because that's the native language of the country. So if I want to add to that, the others of language is what I
So the language thing is actually very important. Africa has about 3,000 languages. So when you say that we can't really communicate because we are different languages, that's it, I would say no, because France had many languages. France. But they decided that French would be the universal language of the country. Zimbabwe had several languages, but they decided that Shona would be the main language of the country. Togo had many languages, but they decided that one language would be. So we can solve this problem. A country like Cameroon, for example, has about 250 or 60 different tribes. And so many different languages. I just told you my father will speak his language, my mother can understand. And that is like everywhere we go, we have different. But we have major cultures that regroups a lot of clans where it's a political decision. We can decide to choose one language that will, what I'm voting for. I want Swahili to be the only language taught across Africa. People usually say, why? Swahili has a very long history of Pan-Africanism. Swahili is very easy to learn. Swahili has very philosophical concept that can help the Pan-African movement. And I'm sure that most Africans will agree. I know Ghanniy will say Yoruba also should be, but if we are really objective, and our leaders are objective, we can vote for 1, 2, or 3 major languages. Let's say Zulu tribe in the whole southern Africa. I don't think another country will say no. We can say Swahili for the whole Eastern Africa, and we can say Yoruba for the whole Western Africa. And then every African must learn Zulu, Swahili, Yoruba. Don't you think that will fix the problem of language?
There was a question. I didn't answer another question. This lady she wanted to ask.
But if your question is related to language, you can continue that.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Okay, hi. My name is Ebede. I'm a Nigerian.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm trying. My name is Ebede. I'm a Nigerian. I'm a pastor. I just wanted to say vehemently disagree with your suggestion of 4 languages across the whole of Nigeria, across the whole of Africa. Nigeria has over 300 ethnic groups and over 3,000 languages. And unfortunately, for political reasons, there are very, very deep divides across the countries. When we decide which language or whose culture is supposed to supersede the rest of us, it will lead to the destruction of the nation. My father is Ghanniy, my mother is Ebede. I speak both. Yes. They understand each other, but the speaking is I grew up in Lagos, so I understand and speak Yoruba. That's 3 languages. Nigeria has about 3,000. That's just 3 that I know alone out of the 3,000. If you choose a language that is supposed to cover, say, the whole of West Africa or just Nigeria, does that mean I have to learn another language to be able to communicate with my countrymen? Unfortunately, we have English for now, but whatever reasons you have for thinking Yoruba is the one that should succeed to West Africa. I'm sorry. Nigeria will not agree. Even in the southwest of Nigeria, where there are predominantly Yoruba people, yes, there will be pushback. Yes. I understand Yoruba because I grew up in Lagos. I went to school in Lagos. It was not by choice. I just picked it up because that was everyone was speaking around me. And then at some point I just chose to develop that. I refused. If I wanted, I would believe the ancient Benin Kingdom is prominent, for our language to be the language that represents Nigeria. Everyone can be a case.
I get your point, and your objection is valid. Okay? So I am a thief from Benue State, okay, in Nigeria. Well, I'm Cameroonian, but I was adopted. as a chief. Like I'm adopted as Army in Taiwan. So I do know the Nigeria. I know that it's pretty much three main blocks. The Hausas in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbos in the east. And you have many other small things in there. But you have the three major blocks, right?
Yes.
Okay. We will disagree. I know. But there are sacrifices that Africans have to make at some point.
I think that I can't call the letting go of one's language or one's culture because it doesn't have to be another language. But my sister doesn't understand Yoruba. How does she
Okay, you're right.
You understand?
You have a point.
Thank you.
We have 2 more questions.
Okay, just to insert some thoughts from the Caribbean National and from St. Denis on the language topic. I think when it comes to Pan-Africanism and uniting African people and people of African descent, we have the benefit of seeing other people do it before. So in terms of figuring out the language, I think individual countries can decide which language they want, but maybe we just have African English. Because that is the most common language used around the world. So if we have the African English, and then every country can decide which language of which tribe. But this is from a Caribbean person. I speak standard English, and then I speak broken English, which is hard to turn on if I'm not speaking to a fellow Caribbean person. So I can't really talk it easily, but yeah. Anyways, so that's not my question. My question was because we saw in the monologue what we call in the Western side, we call it code switching. Yes. And I think when you made your presentation, Doctor, you spoke about the transition from illusion to liberation, and you said a lot of people are stuck in the middle. So I'm curious for the panelists, those who spoke, where do you feel you are in terms of your transition from illusion to liberation? How do you as an individual try to make that transition further? How do you walk away from illusion? Thank you.
Well, I'll be the first to say I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot off. Because I remember going to East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya. You know, people come up to me, hey, Mambo, and they start speaking. And then I'm like, you're not from here, you're not from Tanzania. So I've been detached from Africa for so long, so I know that from a cultural standpoint, I'll always be behind. And being here in Taiwan for so long, you know, I speak fluent Chinese, so I'm a global citizen. But at heart, I'm a Pan-Africanist from a political standpoint, in that I think that Africa needs to rise, Africans need to develop or prosper from their natural resources. And I think that with the development of Africa, we as Black people in the diaspora all over the world will benefit from that. So that is the core interest for me as Pan-Africanist, just to make sure that Africa is able to ride the wave with the new multipolar world, and Africa can grow, and Africa can thrive and be successful economically. All of us in the diaspora will benefit from that. Culturally, I have a lot to learn in terms of the language and the culture, you know, to really deepen my African roots. But politically, as a Pan-Africanist, Africa to thrive, Africa to rise next, Africa to have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think the answer might not be yes or no, but I think most of us we have decided a path on how to support this liberation. Personally, different from others, I'm looking towards our leaders' need. Because, as I said, if the president of a country will be here, he will ask that many people want to make a coup d'etat against him. He will look for practical solutions. So, on my side, I would say probably I'm a little bit in the liberation side because I think help cannot come from strangers. Because you have, if you check the statistics, you have received a lot of support, more than what Taiwan and South Korea have received for the last 20 years. The help you are still receiving, of course, might not help again. So it's up to us, in Warisa, to the think tank, to show our leaders that these things have not worked for the last 4 years. If you keep it the way it is, don't be surprised. You know all the agendas of African Union, 2052 will be like this. They have been having agendas upon agendas. Yet, the brother said we should praise our countries. It's very good, but most of us were here because there are no opportunities back home. That's the reality. As far as I get reports from Warisa, from 35 countries where we have African or people of African heritage, why they don't go back home after graduation is because there are no opportunities. Of course, there are countries like South Africa probably you have, but most of us. So it's good to praise what is being done, but it's good to feel the reality. If you remember very well, Taiwan and South Korea, the time they were trying to get developed, they had specific missions to know who is an international student in the US. They were sending them. They were following up each and everyone. When are you graduating? What? You should come, you should, but most of us, they don't even know about us. So we have a reality. We should not escape the reality. Well, so the question is, my support, I think we want to give clear report that these things might not work in the next 5 years. Please try this. And probably I'm a little bit political. Probably if you hear my sound, I always try to be very respectful. I don't want to cause problem because that probably Marisa is a non-political organization. So I think I am in and out. I would say yes.
So okay. Wow, you really had a really tough question. So my mother was a native healer. When I was in Cameroon as a kid, she saw in me a potential healer who could succeed. She wanted to teach me her ways. And I was very in love with Western education. So I told my mom, please keep your witchcraft stuff to yourself. She just started crying. So I just studied the whole thing, blah, 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 got all the PhD, whatever, went to the US, blah, 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 and all that. But then I had an awakening, realizing that I was empty with all those things because I had emptied myself from my own culture, from everything. So I had to make a return, right? So now, after disconnecting totally with Africa, embracing completely 100% the West, I am beginning to unfold and unlearn that so that I can reconnect. So I can say like then one foot in, one foot out, but I'm still stuck in that middle, but I'm making my way slowly there. I also quickly want to say there is a question we didn't answer where there's a woman who asked about education. How can we, So, one of the questions I always ask myself, and I think Warisa can really relate because they focus more on educating our young African minds, even though that scares our dear back in Africa. How can Africans, especially young African students, compete and even win in the world when all they learn is the history of their subjugation and not the intellectual heritage of their successes? I'll tell you a couple of stories briefly. 23 BC, a blind woman, one eye, was the queen of Nubia. She fought the mighty Roman Emperor Augustus Caesar, stopped his mighty army from progressing from Egypt down to Nubia, which is currently North Sudan. One eye pretty much defeated the mighty Roman army and forcing Caesar to come down and sign the peace treaty. You can take your phone and just Google it. Amanirenas, her name, Amanirenas, or Candace, 23 BC. She captured Caesar's head, bronze head, buried it under her palace so that people can walk on it to show Caesar how much he despised him. That's a blind black woman with one eye who defeated the mighty Roman army, 23 BC. You can check that. Okay? February 1662, African military helped Kosinga to liberate Taiwan from Dutch imperial army. You can check that right now on your phone. Do they teach you that? No. Okay? Ethiopia, on March 1st, 1896, defeated the imperial army of Italy to make sure that Ethiopia remained the only African country that has never been colonized. Italy came back briefly, but then lost again during the Second World War. They don't teach you that, right? So you can say that we have history, okay? Africa built the Great Pyramid that remained the tallest building in the world for 4,000 years. You can go back to the Black Pharaohs, okay? The Black Pharaohs, 25th dynasty, what the black people did there. They are not teaching us our history. They are not telling you what to do. Coming back now precisely to your question about education. Mansa Musa, one of the last emperor of the Mali Empire, was the richest man in history of the world, investing heavily in education. Take your phone, type the University of Sankore. He made Timbuktu in Mali the center for learning in the world that attracted educators from all over the world to come and study that. They're not teaching you that. Okay? Abdullah Tangana, the Cameroon guy who was a professor in South Africa, was named second in general mathematics in the whole world by Stanford best second scientist and recognized by UNESCO. Created the Tangana model to help with pandemics and stuff like that. That's your African lab. They will not teach you that. I can go on and on and on to address specifically the education piece that Africans have brought to the world or the history that Africans have made, but they will tell you, as I showed you, that Africa has no history. Okay?
I've just been informed that the food is now arriving.
Okay.
And so, but I know I've been waiting a very long time to ask the question, so maybe ask the question very briefly, and then you can either respond now, or we can adjourn, and then we can have the conversation as we begin to head down. So, please, thanks for waiting.
Hi everyone. Well, I've had the pleasure of working with both Dr. Ghanniy and Dr. Lewis, so I'll just be straightforward, okay? I think we're going around in circles. What are the solutions right now? I'm on the ground, I'm working with the youth in Waresa, I'm working with the last conference, we just held a conference where we've seen amazing talent from young Africans. On the ground right now, how do we translate whatever you've written about in that book down to a program where we can implement it in Waresa public mentorship? We have already had a program. These are the kind of conversations we should be having right now. Not coming back, not no offense to bringing history and everything, but what are the practical steps moving forward? That's what we need, because right now, what I can tell you with the one-on-one that I have with the youth, they are very, very disoriented. Gen Z is really across the globe, is disoriented for whatever reasons that are beyond our control. But the African Gen Z is further disoriented. Why? Because they also don't have their own identity, right? And how do we translate the philosophy, the psychology, the theories down to practice? That's what I'm interested in, and I believe that's what a lot of people in this room are interested in. What we are finding, what I'm struggling with when I'm working with the youth is that I have a person who wants to do something around maybe big data. I cannot find a brother or a sister that can mentor this person into that career. Somebody who just go beyond his mentoring. We just wanted to launch a program on mentorship with someone who adopt a child. When we say child, I don't mean like under 18, I mean adopt a student that is an undergraduate, well, I'm talking about the Asian context here because that's the students that I've been working with. Adopt a student, mentor them from the psychology perspective and from the practical perspective, how to budget, how to manage your finances, how to be a better human being, how to contribute to your community, how to help other African students, how to be equipped in and doing research and understanding research. And like we're living in a knowledge society where if you're not able to synthesize information on your own, ChatGPT will take you down a hallucination rabbit hole, right? And you think you know something. So these are the things that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis that bring me a lot of frustration. And just because the two of you are there right now, I would love to get an answer. How do we translate what is in the book down to a program? Those are the solutions that I'm looking for. And I think everybody here is really, if we can come up with something like that, something solid like that, everyone here will be accountable for contributing to that. Everybody here has a skill that they can teach to a young African, and we should be doing that. And I apologize for being so direct, but I really believe this is something that I'm passionate about, and I really believe it's taking us a long time not to find the resources of the people that are educated here and linking them back to the youth, the people that are going to make all these changes that we're talking about, the Pan-Africanism coming back again, and African Renaissance and all of that, is only going to come alive or come to life if we go to the ground. I will take off the gloves, take off the academic gloves, I'm an academician myself, take off the doctor typeness, and we go to the ground and educate our people. I think that's what Loretta was asking. How do we educate? And I'm going to be a future mother. I'm thinking about the curriculum that I'm going to teach to my kids, not for the school, not to criticize anybody. It's down to us. It's up to us. And what are we doing next week, next month, next year?
Well, her name is Dr. Lotando. She was the president of Waresa, Taiwan. Let me talk into Waresa. Waresa, we have more than 400 PhD holders who are members. But some of them, before they do something, they always ask me, the founder, how much I'm going to pay. She knows very well how hard it is to get someone who will spend his time to support others. That's why the reality, the answer is everything we're doing, she knows many things. We in Waresa sometimes contribute our own money to run programs. Unless the political powers, unless our leaders in the politics decide to implement our ideas, we as the private sectors, there's not much we can do. Because I have my family, you got your family, you have to work 5 to 6 or 9 to 5. So the answer is we're trying to implement something, but without the resources, it's very, very hard. We are limited. That's why in many countries, just look at the example. I always say, I want to mention the country. There's one developed country, you will know it, 40% of all their citizens, they don't have medical insurance. There are countries, if you have traveled the world, there are countries where their transportation system is messed up. But there are other countries, including this one, and where I live, these countries are almost perfect. There's one lady who came from Korea. She went to Korea, she went from Korea in she was very young, 1970, she went to France and other European countries. She said, when I left Korea, it was a developing countries, going to a developed countries. But now that I came back to Korea, I left a developing country, coming back to a developed country, saying that unless our governments implement our suggestions, she knows very well we don't really have enough resources. But as you say, in Waresa, we have several programs and we're doing our best. Seems like there's enough. Yeah, thank you very much.
So please, tell me what you are doing, and it will inspire me to support what you're doing or to copy it, and then everybody, we just keep it going. We have leaders of 2 organizations. Instead of what can we do? Join their organization, support what they're doing. The question is not what can we do? We have people doing things. The question is, can we support each other? Can we build on what we already have? Or if you have some idea that you feel this is the answer, then you do it and you inspire others to join you.
You are truly Mother Africa. Your check is in the mail. So that's true. You know, Africans are very smart. They learn a lot of academic, like technology and everything that we need to develop the country. but I feel like it's still remaining at the level of theories and they're not being applied, maybe because some of African leaders are still pushing back, one. And two, I think sometimes Africa are a little short-sighted. It's offensive, but what I'm trying to say is we want quick gains. We want, when we do something, we want to make money right here, right now. We don't want to do the work. We don't want to unpack the whole century of trauma. They affect us, okay? So we are in survival mode where we always need to put food on the table, we need to have children, give them a future, we need to take care of our wedding, marriage, school, and all that. It's urgent needs, and that is crushing us. So when people are inside that, they cannot think long term. They want quick fixes. They are not quick fixes. So, what I would say concretely, one, let's go back to rotating savings club. What I mean is, what you can do, Dr. Lutanda, right now, to tell the student that they should organize themselves in small groups. Once a month, they raise funds. For example, 5,000 per person. 10 people in a group or 20 people in a group, they raise 5,000 NT and they collect that money. At the end of 1 month, they give it to one person who already has a very clear idea of what they want to do. Very clear, because everything comes down to money. You can have all the ideas you want. All your students can ask you and tell you all the projects they want. If there's no money to implement the project, that will not go anywhere. So start to find ways to raise that money by what? Because you say we shouldn't go back to the past. That's what our ancestors were doing in the past. They were having collective money raising, rotating savings club. This month, 10% raise about 100,000. Give to one person to accomplish their project. Next month, the same people raise 100,000, give to somebody else who has a project. And then it goes around and around where we have enough money to sponsor a clear project, right? Making sure that will be reimbursed. One step. Second, lands trust. Right now, you're African, you have a lot of lands back home. Land is money. So, how do you use your land? You can rent it for people who can sow and do agriculture, right? And sell. So, and then you have some benefit. Okay? Last, collective agriculture. We used to have in our villages. Villages will come, do massive farms for one family, okay, and grow a lot of food to sell, and then the next season they go to do somewhere else. That's what our ancestors were doing, and those are very practical stuff. The book will tell you more specific ways to fix those problems. Comes down to money.
Speaking of putting food on the table, the food is on the table downstairs, and so thank you so much for waiting for this very lively discussion. Because we're starting lunch a little bit late, we'll also start the next panel a little bit later, I think 1:50, if that's okay. So we'll be back in the room at 1:50. But you can follow the arrows just outside the door. They'll take you down to the banquet room for the lunch. But I have an important question though, very strange. Does anybody have a lighter?
Is that a small